Welcome everyone to episode 5 of the Perfect Tips and Tricks with OESD. It's a beautiful Tuesday here. Hope your day is going well and that you've had lots of time to embroider. It is always lovely to spend time with you. I'm really excited about today. I have a special guest again hiding in the background. We're going to welcome the fantastic Kimberly Dodson. She is one of our educators that travels to see you guys, and she will be talking to you about applique. It's actually a two-part series. There's enough to talk about that she'll be with us twice. So today and tomorrow, Kimberly will be talking all about applique. So I'm going to pop over to Kimberly. Let's get that sorted out. There is Kimberly. All right, Kimberly, I am going to send you on your way to talk to all of us about applique. Go for it.
Hi, I hope you can all hear me, right? Good. Oh, awesome. Okay, so I am super excited to talk to you about applique. And if any of you have been to my events, you know that I tend to talk a lot. And so I messaged Carrie and I said, you know what, I cannot talk about applique in one day. So today I'm going to talk about trim in the hoop applique. So that would be if you're, putting fabric down in your hoop and then you're going to trim with scissors. Well, your project is still in the hoop. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about pre-cut applique, and that's a whole different thing, but using the same types of designs and some of the same products. But so just a little bit, I have some little step out samples. So if you've never done applique before, typically applique starts, and so these are just little stitch outs, but you start with a placement stitch. So this would be my placement stitch. And you can see I have these little boots and it's just stitched the one time. At OESD, we have some really great products to make the applique easier. So what I've done here is once I stitch my placement stitch, and remember, if I were really doing this, this would be in the hoop. I don't have 8 hoops to do this, so that's why it's out of the hoop. But this would be still in the hoop. I would have that stitched, and then I would have my applique fabric. And I have put on this applique fabric a product that we have called Applique Fuse and Fix. And so if you look at it, it's fused on the back. And let me show you what the package looks like if you are looking for it. So this is the package, and you'll notice that it comes in sheets. And if I open them, let me show you what they look like. And I don't know how well you can see this or if I can get it in the light, but this side is shiny, and this would be what I would fuse to the wrong side of the fabric. This side looks like paper, and it actually peels off. So that is fused to my applique fabric. So once I've stitched my placement stitch and I've got it in my hoop, I would take my applique fabric and I would peel off the paper. And you got to have nails. Sometimes you can even score this a little bit, but let's see here. Try another corner. It's usually not this hard. There it goes. Okay, so I peel off the paper, and now you see I've got something that is sticky. So I can take that and I would put it, and I would have this hook, and notice that it is stuck to my project. And now I don't have to use any tape or anything on this because it is fused down. So once I have that fused down, and it would look like this. And I used a different color of fabric just for this because I wanted you to be able to see really well the 2 stitches that the OESD digitizers do. Because when you're trimming that, you're going to peel this up. And so it was stuck down. I can still feel that. But I would take my scissors and I would just start trimming. So you can take whatever your favorite applique. These are the double curved scissors that OESD sells. But I would just take that and I would start trimming, and I'm kind of trying to do it so that you can see, but I would just start trimming around there. But OESD gives us those 2 stitch lines. That way, if I accidentally do trim into my stitches, I still have something that's holding my fabric in place. So the next steps with applique, you can see after it's all nicely trimmed, I would just finish the design. So here's the rest. And this particular project has a satin stitch. And that's one thing I wanted to make sure that you know is that typically when you're trimming in the hoop, so you're doing it with scissors like I was just showing, you really want to have a satin stitch for your cover stitch. And tomorrow when I talk about pre-cut applique, I'll kind of go into that more about what types of designs are better for pre-cut applique. But when you're doing your trimming in the hoop, you really like this nice satin stitch because you can see that I don't have any of my fabric showing outside of the satin stitch. So a little bit more about Applique Fuse and Fix. One of the other reasons that I like using it, and not just for holding my fabric in place while I'm stitching it down and doing that tack down stitch, and I don't know how well you can see this. This is a better sample that I show sometimes at events, but if you ever have the problem where you put a light colored applique on over a dark fabric, if you look at this little teapot here, you can almost see the kind of the floral print showing or shadowing through. And on this one, I've put the Applique Fuse and Fix on it, and that helps with that problem too. So it kind of serves a dual purpose on this project. So another type of applique that we do where we trim in the hoop is raw edge applique. And in raw edge applique, it kind of has the same way you start. You start with a placement stitch. When I stitched this little step out, I did it in a dark thread. I will tell you, if you're doing raw edge applique, and even though it's kind of hard to see, I really would use a thread that blends in with your fabric for your placement stitch. Sometimes we want to use a darker thread because it's easier to see that placement. But when you're doing raw edge, sometimes that placement stitch ends up showing up after you trim your fabric. So I would typically, if I'm doing it at home, I would have used on this particular fabric, I would probably have used white thread, but I wanted you to be able to see it. So the product that I used for this is a product that we have called Fusible Woven. And so it looks like this. It comes in a roll. You can also get it in black. So this is open, but that's the black. And I have fused it onto the back. And when you use it, you'll feel one side is really bumpy. That's the side you want to fuse to the wrong side of your applique fabric. So I have this little piece. And so what I would do is I would take it, and this is only fusible on the one side. So I would take it and I would lay it over, and then I would use my tearaway tape, and I would tape it down really well because it's going to kind of float around in my hoop if I don't. So I would tape it down. If you've never used the OESD tearaway tape, it is a lifesaver. The nice thing is that reasons that I love it, it's not too tacky. It's just the right amount of hold that you need. And if I accidentally get it caught up in my stitches, it tears out really easily. And if you use painter's tape, sometimes you get that blue line in your seam, and you don't get that with this. So once I do, I take that down, then the next steps will be kind of starting to do the design. So this is actually the placement stitch for this particular design. And you'll notice that it's just part of the design because this is going to be a raw edge design. So I would continue to stitch out the design. And then in this, before I stitch the last part of this, I started the trimming process. So remember, this is raw edge applique. So there's not going to be a cover stitch covering any part of it. So I would just start using my scissors and just trimming around the raw edges of this design. And once I'm done, I would finish so this one had some little leaf details after I trimmed, but you can see that it's actually raw edge. The reason that I use the Fusible Woven on this particular one is because I don't want that raw edge to start to fray. The Fusible Woven helps with that problem. So there's a lot of things that we do with Fusible Woven. It comes in handy for many, many projects. And so this is just one of them, but we actually do use it in the raw edge applique designs. So that's a little bit about cutting in or trimming in the hoop applique and some of my favorite tools. I want to show you one other thing. If you've been to any of our events in the last year or so, we did this project. And this is another form of raw edge applique using a quilting design that was actually never intended to be an applique design, but it worked really well. So sometimes we can think a little bit outside, I say outside the hoop, but think about what types of things you can do to create your own applique designs. So that's just a little bit of trimming in the hoop. Tomorrow we're going to talk about pre-cut applique, and I have some other really cool projects to show you. But make sure you post any questions you have or anything that you want me to go over tomorrow in the comments, and I will turn everything back over to Carrie.
Thank you. That was super fun. I always love listening to our educators. I don't think that you can ever learn all there is to know. We are so fortunate to have such a wonderful group of educators. There's 10 of them that you guys have probably met out there. If you've had an event with one of our educators, show them some love in the comments. They love to hear from you and how much they help you guys learn. And definitely, as always, shout out your local stores, and we are thinking about you guys and all of them right now. So really quickly, I wanted to just go over some of the things that Kimberly talked about in her video, just in case you didn't have time to catch the names of them. She showed, it was a little tough to see, but a really cute design from Gnome Sweet Gnome. That's a collection that is on our sister site. So if those of you who don't know, we have two websites, and scissortailstitches.com is our sister site. It launched in June, has some really fun, kind of funky designs. So Gnome Sweet Gnome is on that site. Lilified is a classic collection that is on Embroidery Online, and that is shown here. That was where the flower was from that Kimberly showed. And then Retro Mod Kitchen Appliques is another one that's great. I don't think you can ever go wrong with a cupcake, either in embroidery or in real life. And then the products were Applique Fuse and Fix. That's the double-sided fusible. Our fabulous tearaway tape, and you get 2 rolls in a pack there, so you can have one by your machine and one on your cutting table. And then the Perfect Embroidery Press Cloth, I don't think we touched on too much, but that is our amazing pressing cloth, helps get rid of all of your puckers. And of course, Fusible Woven. Those of you who know me know that Fusible Woven is my favorite product that we sell. It is not a stabilizer necessarily, it's an interfacing. So you treat your fabric with it, and it kind of ups the thread count of your fabric that you're going to embroider on. It's great for when you're doing anything on a lightweight fabric. It really helps beef it up. And then you put it in the hoop, and it almost eliminates puckers all of the time if you treat your fabric ahead of time. And in tomorrow's episode, Kimberly will be back. She is our applique expert this week, and she will be doing part 2 and going over pre-cut applique for those of you who have cutting machines or you just want to print out your piece.